where do you think tariffs stand now on Canada and Mexico? Are they on full? Might they change again? Where do you think we are in the narrative here?
As much as anybody can know, and that includes the people in the Treasury Department, in the Commerce Department, in the NEC, and for that matter, in the Oval Office, I think it's somewhere in between. But again, the uncertainty of it is the key issue. There isn't a real coherent narrative about why they're doing what they may or may not end up doing. And I think this is very important, Mark, economically, in the sense that even if some of the feared outcomes don't come, you have an opportunity cost along the way. There is a significant amount of business activity that can't and won't take place in the midst of uncertainty, even if the end run ends up being, I think you've talked about it quite a bit over the last several weeks. I more or less have exactly your view, that there's negotiation posture, threats, and the belief that he will use this whole subject to get to a certain outcome. But I'm not sure that that's fully going to matter in the end if it suppresses a lot of economic activity along the way.
Canada and Mexico, not exactly the same, but the president does try to play them off each other. You hear a lot about Canada threatening, particularly on energy. If they went all in to try to retaliate and maybe one up what the president ends up doing, how significantly could they damage the American economy by withholding energy?
They could significantly damage the American economy. And of course, we're both in a sense of mutually assured destruction, because anything they do that damages American economy damages their own economy as well. That's sort of the nature of exchange, that by definition, there were two parties benefiting when the exchange was happening. Otherwise, the exchange wouldn't have been happening. So if something happens as an impediment to said exchange, then both parties are damaged by it. So yes, there is systemic issue. And again, because I believe all economics is marginal, it may only be marginal impact, but that is what damage to the economy is things done at the margin. And I think things done at the margin right now are a concern, because we're not dealing with something that is full steam ahead economically. There are questions about real GDP growth. There are questions about productivity, CapEx investment, a lot of those key indicators that are not just new with the new administration, and they weren't just a byproduct of a Biden moment or post-COVID moment. From a secular standpoint, these are major economic issues, Marco, since the financial crisis, of getting capital expenditures, getting non-residential fixed investment, industrial productivity. Anything that holds that back, I think, is problematic.
So my working assumption, and I'm pretty sure you agree with this, is that people like Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, Kevin Hassett, head of National Economic Council, they're willing to go along with tariffs, and they're sort of factoring them in. But they're in charge of making sure that the tariffs don't cause big harm to the American economy and the world economy, right? And last night the president said, kind of for the first time in that high-profile way, there could be some short-term pain here. Like, everybody trust me, right? In effect, trust me, short-term pain, long-term gain. What are the tripwires that, and the Treasury Secretary has like all these screens, they've got a Bloomberg terminal, all these screens up. What are the tripwires that would cause a Hassett or Bessent to go into the Oval Office and say, Mr. President, like, we need an off-ramp because these are causing damage beyond which we should attempt, and if we don't turn it around soon, it could spiral even worse.
So I'll give you a very thorough answer, but it's short. With Bessent, it's the bond market, and with Trump, it's the stock market.
Right.
And this is a rule of thumb that applies across all kinds of things. The media, certainly most pedestrians and just, normal investor participants, the S&P, the Dow, the stock market is the kind of bellwether, and it most certainly is for President Trump. With Bessent, who has a deeper level of financial markets knowledge than any Treasury Secretary in my lifetime, it is the bond market. And when the 10-year bond yield has gone from 4.8 to earlier this week, it was 4.15. It's come up now, but inflation expectations had not gone higher, or they had only marginally gone higher. It was real growth expectations that were collapsing. Bessent is well aware that that's the tripwire. I think Hassett is as well. Kevin is certainly the one I know the best. He and I have been National Review colleagues for many years, spoken together many times. He understands all this stuff thoroughly. But one of my concerns, Mark, that is a newer concern, I don't think it's the first time last night that Trump said we may face a little short-term damage. Obviously,
I hedged by saying high profile. Can't be
yeah,
wrong there.
yeah. Well, and it was the highest profile.
Yeah.
It was certainly the highest profile place he said it. Those are dangerous things to say because I think he ended up adding what I guess was not on the teleprompter, a little parenthetical line of hopefully it won't be that bad or won't be that long, but there could be some pain. But then if you do end up getting that data points, these are the things that could be used against him dramatically, as you know, just from a political standpoint. But one of the concerns I have right now that I've been thinking about a lot this week is if we get to where I think we're going to end up getting, which is not having a full-blown trade war with a lot of noise along the way, you still have left some damage in the narrative that was used to get there. It's not just don't take Trump literal stuff. It isn't just hyperbole, and it isn't just respect the art of the deal. You can't say over and over that they're ripping us off in trade deals. And then, by the way, most of which he wrote, and then say, hey, we got fentanyl protection, we got the border closed. Because if the border is closed, but they're still ripping us off in trade deals, why would we go back? You can't say tariffs are going to make our country rich without giving future administrations, including left-leaning ones economically, a green light to use higher taxes to say we're going to make our country rich with higher taxes on American importers. So I'm concerned that even if we get to the right place, the argument along the way could stick in a way that we might be underestimating.
Yeah, the only quibble I'd make is when you use the construction, you can't say, you mean a normal, rational person who understands things the way the world typically understands them. Trump can do all of that and will and has, right?
Yeah, but
he's talking in an unorthodox way so
you're
far.
100% correct, and he can say things that I would have never thought possible, and I still am in a way complimenting him by pointing out that I think he will end up doing the right thing in the end with a lot of noise on the way. But I think my comment's even more specific about guys like Hassett and Secretary Bahnsen, who I do think know the same things I'm saying, and they're kind of being forced right now to borrow some of that same almost Navarro-like rhetoric to get there, and that troubles me a little bit.
Yeah, it troubles me too, and we'll see where it ends up, because if they keep down this path for weeks and weeks, as you said, amongst the impact will be economic activity. People will just become more hesitant to do anything because they don't know where it's going to end up, and they'll keep waiting, and obviously the implications of that